Service desk analysts use workflow actions to move the ticket toward resolution and closure of the ticket. Two key factors control the list of workflow actions. These are matching conditions and permissions. In this lesson, we'll learn how the actions drop-down menu changes based on matching conditions and permissions. First, let's look at how the Service Desk Administrator configures matching conditions and permissions. From the Manage menu, click Tools, then click the Service Desk Channel button, and then scroll down and select Workflow Actions. There are several workflow actions already included in Cloud SM. Let's take a look at the matching conditions and permissions on an existing workflow action. We'll select the workflow action. Take ownership to see the matching conditions defined on this workflow action. The criteria field shows that this workflow action should display only when the ticket status is not resolved, closed or new. Next, look at the groups and roles that have permissions to this workflow action. Click the Permissions tab. We see that besides administration, the Incident Management role has permissions to this workflow action. So, the Take Ownership workflow action should only be available to those analysts who are related to the Incident Management role. And, the workflow action should only display when the ticket status is not closed, new or resolved. Now, let's log in as Joe Hayes, a Service Desk Analyst who is related to the Incident Management role. To see what workflow actions are listed in the Actions drop-down menu, for Joe, select the Intermittent Email Outages ticket from the list. Click on the Action drop-down menu, and we see that the Take Ownership action is available. This is because Joe has permission to the action, and the matching conditions defined on the workflow action match the conditions on this ticket. Now, let's examine another ticket where the status is resolved. Click the Home tab and select the ticket email that appears to be virus. In the summary, we see that the status of this ticket is resolved. So, the Take Ownership action should not be available on this ticket. Click the Actions drop-down menu. We see that the Take Ownership workflow action is not listed. This is because the conditions on the ticket do not match the matching conditions defined on the workflow action. So let's change the permissions on the Take Ownership workflow action. We'll log back in as our administrator, Nick. From the Manage menu, click Tools, then click the Service Desk Channel button, scroll down, and select Workflow Actions. Select the workflow action named Take Ownership, and click the Permissions tab. There are two ways to manage permissions to this workflow action. First, you can limit permissions to the contextual user on the ticket. Second, you can assign or revoke permissions to groups and roles from the Manage Permissions channel button. When you limit permissions to contextual users, you don't specify a particular role or support group. The user or group that has permission to the workflow action is determined by the ticket. So let's take a look at the contextual users that can be assigned permissions. Click the double down arrows on the Limit to field. The contextual users related to tickets window displays. As an example, if you create a workflow action to set a ticket as pending, you might want only the group lead of the assigned group to have permissions to the workflow action. In this case, we won't limit permissions to contextual users. Let's remove Incident Management from the list of roles that have permissions. Then click Manage Permissions. Select Incident Management from the Current Permissions column, click Remove, and then click Save Permissions. The Incident Management role no longer has permissions to this workflow action. Let's log in as Joe Hayes, the Service Desk Analyst, to verify. Joe selects the Intermittent Email Outages ticket from the list and clicks the Actions drop-down menu. We see that the Take Ownership workflow action is no longer available. Here, we've seen how matching conditions and permissions impact the list of workflow actions that analysts see on a ticket. Refer to the Documentation Wiki under the Learn menu to learn more about workflow actions.